Hello viewers, and welcome to the latest installment of the LOTR LCG Progression Series, a production by Cardboard of the Rings, the bi-weekly podcast about the Lord of the Rings the card game, which is a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. My name is Mitch.
And I'm Matthew.
And today we're going to be taking a look at the very first scenario of our second Saga expansion. This is Flies and Spiders. So Matthew, why don't you introduce us to our story?
Having been rescued from the goblins and their warg allies by the eagles of the Misty Mountains and fostered in the house of Beorn, Bilbo Baggins and his travel companions resumed their quest for the Lonely Mountain. However, in order to reach Thorin's ancestral home, Bilbo and the dwarves had to find their way through the dangerous forest of Mirkwood, where giant spiders wove their webs from tree trunk to catch unwary travelers.
So, before we cover some of the mechanics that make this scenario unique, why don't we go ahead and discuss our player decks. So, starting with myself, I'm going to be running 2 leadership dwarves and 1 lore dwarf. So I've got Dane bolstering all the dwarves on the playing field, along with Thorin Oakenshield doing some resource acceleration, and Ori providing me some card advantage. I've got a number of different powerful allies, like Biffer, Glowin, some of the new dwarves that we see in the On the Doorstep player cards, along with some classics like Longbeard Elder, Erebor Record Keeper, that you've seen time and time before. I've got King Under the Mountain to provide some additional card draw for Matthew. I've got Legacy of Durin for myself, some action advantage and resource acceleration effects, that ever so powerful Asphalloth I'm hoping to get onto Glorfindel as quickly as possible, and then just a number of other dwarven classics. So what are you going to be playing, Matthew?
I think the unique challenge of this quest is that Mitch and I have pretty much decided that I will be the non-Bilbo player. In other words, I will not be going off with Bilbo and having all of my characters unconscious. So I will be, left alone to try and attempt to make some progress while I'm waiting for Bilbo to free his dwarven friends and clear his own stage. So I've included a few allies, such as the Sigil Miner, Beaufort, Dwalin, and Arwen, and Gandalf as well, to help boost up my willpower a little bit while I'm on my own. Otherwise, my deck is pretty much what you've come to expect from me from the Heirs of Numenor quests, Baragon and Glorfindel. And so hopefully, with the addition of a little bit of extra willpower, it'll be enough for me to bide my time until Bilbo frees his friends.
Alright, so now that we've taken a look at our player decks, why don't we go ahead and shuffle those? I've already made myself the first player, and let's draw our opening hand of 6 cards. Well, I definitely didn't end up with any allies, but I've got some fantastic stuff that's definitely going to help me out, so I think I'm satisfied with what I drew. And how about yourself?
It's okay. I'll keep it.
Alright, well, now that we've got our opening hands, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the different mechanics that are unique to Flies and Spiders. So taking a look at Quest Phase 1A, this reads Setup. Each player may shuffle 1 copy of Bilbo's Magic Ring into his deck. Then search the encounter deck for the Spider's Glade and set it aside out of play. Then we've got our standard Shuffle the encounter deck and reveal 1 encounter card per player. So we've got 4 different treasure cards laid out here in front of us. 1 is Bilbo's Magic Ring, and this is going to provide Bilbo Baggins an additional resource acceleration each and every round so long as we choose to exhaust this treasure attachment and increase our threat by 1. It also provides Bilbo an opportunity to defend against an attack and cancel all of that damage if it would just so happen to perhaps deal the game-ending blow to him. We've got 3 other treasure cards here on the table, and these are the 3 treasures that we unlocked during our playthrough of the Hobbit Overhill and Underhill Saga expansion scenario, We Must Away Ere Break of Day. This Spider's Glade is a location that we set aside, and this is going to come into play during Quest Phase 4, so we'll cover that a little bit later. The last part of this Quest Phase 1A card is to reveal 1 encounter card per player, so why don't we go ahead and do that now. So shuffling our encounter deck, encounter card number 1 is going to be Forest Stream. So this is a 2-threat location. While it's active, poison characters cannot quest, and after it leaves play, we discard some poison. Poison is a mechanic unique to this scenario that we'll cover as soon as we reveal an enemy with the Venom keyword. So encounter card number 2 is going to be a Treachery. Choose a hero to be removed from the quest. Of course, this does not apply, so it gains Surge, and I certainly don't mind removing this from the encounter deck. So, replacement encounter card 2 is one of these new enemies. So this is Lazy Lob. Its when revealed has no effect since there are not characters committed to the quest. 3 threat, 3 attack, 3 hit points, and it has the keyword Venom, as so many of the enemies in this encounter deck do. And what this means is once this enemy damages a character, we also have to give that character 1 poison card. And the way that we do that is taking the top card of our player deck and putting it face down underneath that character. It counts as a condition attachment, and once a character has a number of poison cards equal to its printed hit points, it is made unconscious. And at that point it cannot quest, it can't ready, it can't attack, defend, collect resources, or trigger activated abilities. So, at the present moment, we're up against 5 threats. Let's go ahead and flip our first quest card, and this is going to be Quest Phase 1B, which reminds us what unconsciousness means, and we've got 9 quest points. So Matthew and I are probably going to take our time progressing through this initial quest phase, just because once we hit Quest Phase 2, Matthew and I actually split up. So the first player, hopefully myself, has all of their characters fall unconscious, and it's up to Bilbo Baggins, going it alone to revitalize those characters and slowly overcome Quest Phase 3, and in the meantime, the other player has to deal with Quest Phase 4, and part of that is the Spider's Glade, which is going to be adding additional spider enemies to the staging area at the beginning of each quest phase, so hopefully he and I will be able to reunite before too long. Before we move out of the setup portion, the very last thing we have to do is to add any of these previously discovered treasure cards to our deck. So I'm going to go ahead and add Glamdring and Bilbo's Magic Ring to my deck, and I'm going to go ahead and shuffle that. And with that said, let's go ahead and add 1 resource to all of our characters and draw 1 card. I think what I'm going to do is I'll strip 2 resources off of my leadership characters for Steward of Gondor on Thorin Oakenshield. I'm going to go ahead and trigger that right away to add 2 resources to his pool. I'm going to strip 1 resource off of Ori, and I'm going to go ahead and do a Legacy of Durin, also on Thorin. I will play a Cram on your Baragond, and I'm going to go ahead and do a We Are Not Idle, choosing 0. So let me go ahead and draw 1 card. And then for my final action, I'll spend 1 resource off Bilbo Baggins to take a look through my deck. And I'm gonna go ahead and grab Glamdring and put that in my hand. I'm also gonna go ahead and slap Glamdring to Thorin Oakenshield, so looks like he's doing pretty well, and that is gonna be my turn.
Okay, all I am going to do is place Light of Valinor on Glorfindel.
Alright, well, still a reasonable play. So that brings us to Quest Phase. I think all I'm going to do, being sure to leave an attacker open, is I'm going to commit 4.
Alright, I'll send 5.
Alright, so let's go ahead and see what we reveal. So encounter card number 1 is going to be until the end of the round, exhausted characters get -1 to all of their attributes. So I guess that's going to drop me down to 2 willpower committed, and that brings you to 3, so grand total of 5. Might as well just leave that in the staging area as a little bit of a reminder. Encounter card number 2 is going to be Crazy Cobb. So 2 threat, 3 attack. It's going to take 1 damage right away. And it reads, this enemy attacks the character with the most poison attached. I guess that's a tie for all characters at this point, so it's going to be up to first player to decide. Why don't I go ahead and pick Baragond as the character being attacked? So giving him 1 shadow card, let's see what it is. And that shadow card does nothing. So Baragond's defense is only 3, but he ends up taking no damage. So why don't we go ahead and get rid of that card, and at the present moment we're going to be up against a total of 7 threats. It looks like we've got 5 committed. I assume there's nothing you can do to influence that?
Nope, nothing I can do.
Alright, so it looks like we're going to end up gaining 2 threats. And that is going to put me at 33, so both of these enemies are going to be engaging us. For travel, should we travel to this forest stream?
Sure.
Alright, so why don't we go ahead and make that active, give us a little bit of a buffer next turn, since we're hopefully going to be clearing out the staging area here. Of course, we transition to engagement. And where should these enemies go? I guess, taking a look at them, they're essentially identical for what you and I can bring to bear. So why don't I just bring Lazy Lob down to me, and Crazy Cobb down to you. Let's go ahead and deal out some shadow cards. Again, we're going to keep this weighed down here as a little bit of a reminder that all of our characters are going to be a little bit weaker as soon as they're exhausted. And just keeping that in mind, since Glorfindel is only going to be able to swing for 2, why don't we go ahead and just switch these enemies? So the order that we dealt the shadow cards remains, but we'll just swap our optional engagement here. So to start things off, I'm going to go ahead and defend against my Crazy Cobb with Dane Ironfoot, so Thorin gets even weaker, and the shadow card is going to be defending character gets 1 poison. So immediately Dane is going to take 1 face down poison attachment. So let me go ahead and page that down. And of course, since his defense is dropped to 2, he's going to end up taking 1 point of damage, and he's going to take another poison card. So he's currently at 2 out of 5, but that is going to be my attack. So how do you want to deal with Lazy Lob?
Well, already Bear gone with Cram.
Alright, I'll get rid of that.
And then he will defend.
Alright, so with his defense strength 3, shadow card is defending character gets 1 poison. So, no damage, but looking like he's not totally unscathed.
Mm-hmm.
So for returning fire, I'm going to go ahead and have Thorin swing for a modified 3, which is going to be exactly enough to kill my Crazy Cobb. So that's gone, its shadow card is gone, and for yours...
Swing for 2.
Right, so not quite killed, but maybe next turn you'll end up drawing a spear. So, end of combat, let's go ahead and get rid of that shadow card. Let's take a look at our encounter discard pile, and let's go ahead and slip that weighed down into its appropriate spot. And at this point, why don't we go ahead and use Control R, and I'll make you first player, I'll give you control of Bilbo Baggins, and let's do our resource phase. So drawing 1 card.
Well, I can't play anything, so it's on to you. Oh, well, let me take the treasure, actually.
Okay,
So
let me
take
pull that resource.
Mm-hmm. Alright, and I will take Orcrist into my hand, and I will play that on Glorfindel, and that'll be it for my turn.
Alright. For me, I'm going to strip 1 resource off of Ori, and I'm going to go ahead and do an Erebor Record Keeper. That triggers Legacy of Durin, so that I draw 1 card. I'm going to go ahead and trigger my Steward of Gondor to do another couple resources on Thorin, and I'm going to go ahead and strip 3 resources to put a Longbeard Elder into play, which means I hit that 5 dwarves threshold, and I draw 1 card. I'm going to go ahead and strip 2 more resources off of Thorin, and I'm going to go ahead and do King Under the Mountain on your Thalin. So that should hopefully provide some card advantage for you. And that is all I'm going to do.
Alright, well I will send 5 to the quest once again.
Why don't I go ahead and exhaust Bilbo, and we'll also have him sent to the quest, and then maybe I'm just going to send my Record Keeper, and that would put us at a total of 8, since we don't want to push through too quickly.
Okay.
And hopefully this will allow us to get rid of some enemies. So why don't we go ahead and see what we're up against. Encounter card number 1... is going to be a fat spider, so both of us have poisoned characters, so at the moment this is going to be swinging for 4 when engaged with us. It of course takes 1 damage from Thalin. Encounter card number 2 is going to be another copy of this weighed down, so let's see.
I will go ahead and play a Test of Will to cancel this particular effect.
Alright, so why don't I go ahead and discard that straight away. Looks like all we're up against is 2 threat from that fat spider. So of course we're going to make the 4 required of our active location. 2 is going to go ahead and trickle over onto our current quest card, and that means the forest stream is leaving play, and we get to discard 4 poison. So it looks like we've only got 3 poison, so let's see what those are. I guess mine was Keely, which kind of sucks, Lure of Moria. And what is yours?
Arwen.
Arwen, yeah, not the best thing to lose, but I suppose we'll survive. And at the present moment, since we don't have any poison, this fat spider is going to end up being pretty wimpy. For engagement, I suppose I might as well have him engage me, since I've got a lot of attack strength to bring to bear. Let's go ahead and distribute some shadow cards as follows. And for your attack, how do you want to defend?
Baragond.
Baragond with full 4 defense strength. Defending character gets 2 poison. So that kinda sucks. But at least he's not unconscious. So
Okay.
he of course takes no damage. For my fat spider, he's only attacking for 1. And I'm gonna go ahead and defend with Dane just to be safe. Shadow card is nothing. So, looks like I take no damage and no poison. How do you want to deal with your enemy? Alright, so Glorfindel handily kills the Lazy Lob. Shadow card is discarded. On my side of the table, Ori is going to swing for 2. Thorin makes it 7. That by itself is enough, but might as well have a Longbeard Elder help out. Fat Spider is killed, and its shadow card is gone. So, before we hit refresh, do you want to use your King Under the Mountain?
Sure. I'll take a spear and discard a Dwalin.
Awesome. So, with that said, why don't we go ahead and Control R to refresh. I'll take control of Bilbo here. You've made me first player, so let's do some resources. I've got the 5 dwarf threshold, so that means Thorin gets an extra card. I'll trigger that steward, and I'll draw 2 cards because of Ori. I think first thing for me is I'll spend 1 Bilbo Baggins resource to look through my deck, and I will grab Bilbo's magic ring. I'll close, shuffle my deck. I'll go ahead and put that on Bilbo. I'm gonna go ahead and play Daron's Runes, so let me draw a couple cards, and I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of Dory, and then discard this Daron's Runes here. I'm going to go ahead and play 1 more copy of Daron's Runes, so I'll draw a couple cards, and I'm going to go ahead and discard Miner of the Iron Hills, and then get rid of that copy of Daron's Runes. And that is all I'm going to be doing for my turn.
Okay, I'm going to trigger King Under the Mountain. Ah, shit, I looked at all cards again. I'll take a Veteran Axe Hand, even though I'm not supposed to shuffle, because I inadvertently looked at everything, I'll just close and shuffle my deck.
Okay.
Oh, and I have to discard 1, huh? Ah, f***, Mitch. We're just going to start over.
Alright.
Alright, let me look at the top X cards. We're going to look at 2. I'll take a Hasty Stroke, I guess, and discard a Battlemaster.
Okay.
I will play a Spear, and that's it for me.
Alright, well, always good to see that spear on Baragond. So, for questing, I think all I'm going to do is just Bilbo, because we don't want to push through quite yet.
I'll send 5.
Alright, so we're going to do a grand total of 6 up against 0, and counter card number 1 is going to be Old Tom Naughty, so it takes 1 point of damage. This is the nastiest enemy in our encounter deck. At the end of each round, each player must give a hero he controls 1 poison. It has the highest attack strength of any other enemy in this encounter deck, and seeing as how Baragond is already pretty laden with poison, this might be a good one for me to chump block. So why don't we go ahead and see encounter card number 2, which is Hidden Path. So it looks like we're going to completely break even. We don't have any Baggins resources to spend to travel to Hidden Path, but hopefully sooner rather than later, I'll end up drawing an ally to put into play. So for travel, we don't have any option, and for engagement, I suppose the old Tom Noddy might as well come down and engage with me. So let's do one shadow card for that, and it looks like I'm going to be losing my 5 dwarf threshold here, but I'll declare Longbeard Elder as the defender, and let's see what the shadow effect is. So defending character gets 1 poison. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on the Longbeard Elder right away. So this enemy has far more attack strength than the Longbeard Elder can handle, so it's going to be killed outright. But there's a simultaneous effect taking place here. So the Longbeard Elder is taking damage that's going to be fatal, but when a character takes damage, it should be receiving a poison card. FFG has clarified in the FAQ that during simultaneous effects like this, the first player decides which order those effects resolve, so I'm going to go ahead and have that Longbeard Elder take that 4 points of damage, and then the poison basically fizzles. We actually had this clarified by Caleb Grace that we're not discarding another poison card. But the poison card that is gone is an Erebor Record Keeper, which certainly wouldn't have been the worst draw for me. To return this attack, I'm going to go ahead and swing for 8, which is more than enough to kill old Tom Noddy, so that's gone, and at the end of the round, we don't have to stomach that effect. So, at this point, we might as well ready.
Yep.
Alright, so let's Control R. I'll go ahead and make you first player, and I'll transfer Bilbo to you. I no longer control 5 dwarves, but I will give Bilbo a resource. I'll do 1 resource to each of my characters, trigger my steward, and draw 1 card.
Well, I will take Sting and discard a Horn of Gondor. So I'll place Sting on Bilbo. Then I need to do my resources.
Okay, and I suppose I'll take control of Sting.
I'll pay 2 for Arwen.
Fantastic.
And that is it for me. Whoever would think I would be sitting on 8 tactics resources and nothing to spend them on.
Well, hopefully that King Under the Mountain will get you some plates or something, but I'll spend 1 lore resource off of Ori, I'll play my final copy of Erebor Record Keeper, and I'm gonna go ahead and draw 1 card. Might as well go ahead and strip 2 resources off of Thorin there to do a Hardy Leadership. And that is all I'm gonna do.
Okay. I'll send 8.
Okay, and for questing, I suppose I'm gonna go ahead and do 3.
Okay.
I think I'm actually gonna pull back my character here. So we're going to be sending a grand total of 9, and next round we'll be able to push through probably without much effort. But let's see what we reveal. So encounter card number 1 is going to be Fighting Among Friends. So the first player names a sphere. Then all non-Bag and Sphere characters who do not belong to the name sphere are removed from the quest. I guess I'll name...
remove Well, I'm first, so I'll remove Thalon, so Spirit.
Right, my bad, since you're first player, but let's go ahead and get rid of this Fighting Among Friends. Encounter card number 2 is going to be yet another old Tom Noddy, so Thalon is not committed to the quest. It looks like we're up against a grand total of 6 threat, which means we're going to end up making a lone point of progress, but that's just fine with me. So
before we resolve the quest, let me trigger, if you want to trigger the ring for me.
Sure.
I'll raise my threat by 1.
And that gives Bilbo 1 resource.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I suppose during travel, that gives us just enough to move to the hidden path.
Yep.
So might as well make that active. I'll strip those resources off of Bilbo. And for engagement, I suppose old Tom Noddy might as well come down to me. Let's go ahead and give him a shadow card, and I'm going to go ahead and have Dane Ironfoot as my defender. So hoping for something pretty benign. Discard an unconscious character you control. So definitely could have been a nightmare. Dane is going to take 2 points of damage, and he's only going to take 1 poison card. So let me go ahead and page down that. And for returning fire, I'm going to go ahead and have Ori and Thorin swing for a grand total of 7, which is sufficient to kill old Tom Noddy. The shadow card is gone, and once again, we don't have to stomach that effect. So, at this point, I suppose we might as well refresh.
Yep.
Alright, so Control R. I'm going to go ahead and take control of Bilbo. You've made me first player. So I've got 5 dwarves, 1 resource to each character, bonus resource to Thorin, resource for Bilbo. Let me draw 2 cards.
I'm tricking my king out of the mountain. I will take a Gondorian spearman and ditch an Elrond's council.
Okay. For my turn, I think I'm going to strip 2 resources off of Ori, and I'm going to go ahead and put out an Erebor Hammersmith, specifically so I can look in my discard pile, return that cram to my hand, close out of that, and then throw that over to Baragond, just to make your life a little bit easier in the near future here. And of course, Legacy of Durin is going to trigger, so I get to draw 1 card. And that kind of stinks, drawing a Feely, knowing that my Keely is gone. But that's all I'm going to be doing from my turn, expecting for us to push through this round. But how about you?
I guess I'll pay 1 for a Horn of Gondor on Glorfindel.
Okay.
I'll pay 2 for Gondorian Spearman.
Okay.
And that's all I can do.
Alright, well, definitely some useful stuff. For questing, we're probably going to be pushing through this round. Since I'm first player, if we do pass through, all my characters are going to be made unconscious, so there's no reason not to commit them to the quest. So I suppose I'm going to send everybody. So a total of 2, 5, 9, 11, 13, 15.
I'll send 7.
Which is going to make a grand total of 22. And for Arwen, I suppose, do you want Baragond to get her ability?
Yeah, that's who I I think I've not been saying it out loud in our video. I think this is only the second turn. But yeah, that's sort of my default. And I suppose had I thought of that, he could have defended against the old Tom Noddy last turn.
Sure. But, with shadow cards being like they are, no reason to not be very, very safe. So why don't we see what we're up against in counter card number 1. Is going to be Lazy Lobs. This is each character committed to the quest gets 1 poison. So this is kind of horrific, but that is going to be a lot of poison cards. So 1 for Thorin, 1 for Ori, 1 for Bilbo, which is very frightening. 1 for my Record Keeper, who's going to be unconscious. Another 1 for my Record Keeper, who's going to be unconscious. 1 for the Erebor Hammersmith. So the Erebor Record Keepers have 1 printed hit point, even though they've technically got 2 because of Hardy Leadership, so I'm going to go ahead and ready them. I'm going to put a progress token on them to represent them being rotated 180 degrees and unconscious, which is a 3rd character state, so they're not ready, they're not exhausted, they're unconscious. I've got to discard these 2 poison cards immediately, 1 copy Gandalf, 1 copy Asphalloth. Would have been great to get that on your characters before we do this transfer. And looks like you've done your poison cards. Let's go ahead and see what we get for encounter card number 2. And that is Wicked Spider, and when it attacks, the defending character has to attach poison to characters he controls. So let me go ahead and put a couple points of damage on these enemies per Thalon. I suppose I shouldn't have committed Bilbo to the quest in retrospect, but oh well. We are up against 4. Our active location is going to absorb 1, and that's going to make 20 total progress on our current quest phase out of the 9 required. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and pass on to quest phase 2, and this says, when revealed, reveal stage 3, and create a separate staging area for the first player using that stage. Then all other players advance to stage 4. So these 2 enemies are going to come over to Matthew's private staging area. Quest Phase 3 reads remove all resources from each hero's resource pool, then make each character you control, except for Bilbo Baggins, unconscious. So I'm going to go ahead and strip all of my resources, including the 8 from Thorin, and then I'm going to make all of my characters, save Bilbo, unconscious. So let me go ahead and put these little tokens on them, and at this point we get rid of all of their poison cards. So a Song of Wisdom, 1 of 2 in this deck, Erebor Hammersmith, a We Are Not Idle, and last but not least, a 2nd copy of Biffer. So all of my characters are currently unconscious. Let's go ahead and flip this to Quest Phase 3B. This reads, of course, unconscious characters cannot quest, attack, defend, collect resources, trigger abilities, be poisoned, or ready. We no longer pass the first player token. Once I pass this quest phase, we don't actually merge staging areas until the end of the quest phase, but then Matthew and I can rejoin one another and hopefully push through to the end. And at this point, it gives me an action to spend 2 Baggins resources to ready an unconscious character I control, which is going to be my key to making it through this scenario. Quest Phase 4 for Matthew is going to be add the Spider's Glade to the staging area, and this is a very nasty location. So at the start of each quest phase, we have to search the encounter deck for 1 spider enemy and add it to the staging area, and then shuffle the encounter deck. So these enemies are going to start accumulating out of control, and hopefully Matthew will be able to hang in there long enough for the 2 of us to come together and hopefully push through to the end of the scenario. So let's go ahead and flip his quest card, and 4B again reminds us what unconscious characters are. Progress cannot be placed on that stage while the Spider's Glade is in play, but once we defeat this stage, we've won the game and we've discovered Bilbo's magic ring. So with all of that said, akin to Foundations of Stone, Matthew and I are now in separate games, essentially. So my Dane cannot influence his characters, and we can't do any sort of sentinel defending for one another. So all of this stuff here, Matthew has to deal with by himself. So for engagement, the only enemy you have to deal with is this wicked spider. Do you want to optionally engage the lazy lob?
No, I'll just take the wicked spider.
Alright, so let's pull him down. For combat, let's go ahead and give him 1 shadow card. And how do you want to defend against this attack?
I'm going to play a feint.
Okay, so I guess he's not attacking at all, so that forced effect does not trigger.
Right, and then I'll attack with Glorfindel.
Alright, so Glorfindel is going to be more than enough to kill that wicked spider, so it is gone, and its shadow card is discarded with no effect. Would have knocked Baragond unconscious if he'd have defended, so definitely good to see that gone. And I suppose that is the round, so why don't we Control R to refresh. Oh, whoops, shit. Before I actually refresh my characters, I want to use Bilbo's magic ring, boost up my threat to 39, and I'll add 1 resource token to Bilbo Baggins. Now, I'm going to go ahead and ready him, and I'll trigger that ring right away to add 1 additional resource token to him, boost my threat up to 40, and I'm going to spend both of those resources in order to make Thorin Oakenshield conscious once again. Matthew's already done his resources on his characters, but once I get to my resource phase, I do 1 resource on Bilbo, 2 resources on Thorin, because I've still got that 5 dwarf threshold, and because Ori has that passive ability, I'm going to go ahead and draw 2 cards. Since Dane is not ready, my dwarf characters don't get his bonus, but hopefully I'll be able to put Thorin's resources to good use. So why don't I go ahead and trigger that Steward of Gondor right away. I'm going to go ahead and spend 3 of his resources to do Glowin, and I'm going to go ahead and put 2 back on him. I think I'm going to go ahead and do a copy of Darren's Runes, so let me draw a couple cards, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of an unnecessary copy of Feely. I will spend 1 resource from Thorin Oakenshield's pool, and I'm going to go ahead and put a Song of Wisdom on him, and that is all I'm going to do for planning. So how about you?
I'll trigger King of the Mountain.
Okay.
I will take an Unexpected Courage, discard a Sigil Miner. I've just flooded with spirit cards. I will not be playing anything.
Okay, so that is going to bring us to the quest phase. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and spend 1 leadership resource off of Thorin, and I'm going to go ahead and trigger a sneak attack.
I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
And for some reason, Octagon is not letting me discard that, so I'll put that in my discard pile, and I'm going to go ahead and put Gandalf into play. For his ability, I suppose I'm going to drop my threat down to 35, and for committing characters to the quest, I'm going to do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I think I'm actually going to hold Glowin back, and I'm just going to send a grand total of 9. And what are you going to be doing?
I'll send 6.
So before you actually commit those characters to the quest, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the encounter deck, and let's find 1 spider per spider's glade to put into play. I'm thinking Lazy Lob is probably a good idea, not only to spare myself from it, but also to provide a pretty wimpy spider enemy for you. So why don't I go ahead and put that into the staging area, and I'll close and shuffle the encounter deck. There are 3 bats left, which would just be fantastic Thalon fodder. So let's close out of that. Let's go ahead and reveal 1 encounter card for me, which is going to be a Wicked Spider, and then let's do 1 encounter card for you, which is going to be a Dark Bats. So, those bats, 1 of the 3, are going to take 1 point of damage right away, and they are going to be discarded.
Alright, so I know you're going to resolve yours first, but I'm just going to go ahead and play Elrond's Counsel, lower my threat by 3.
Sure.
And boost my willpower up to 7, so I break even.
Sure, I suppose no reason not to. And I've got this enemy sitting here in the staging area. I'm going to make a total of, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 progress on my quest phase, so hopefully I'm going to be able to push through that next turn.
Okay.
So for travel, we still can't go to that Spider's Glade because Bilbo Baggins isn't in your staging area. For engagement, Wicked Spider is going to come down to me. Gandalf, of course, bounces back to my hand at the end of the quest phase, and neither of the Lazy Lob have to engage with you.
Yeah, I'll take one of them.
Which of these 2 do you want?
It doesn't matter.
I suppose we might as well take the full health one down here, and let's go ahead and distribute some shadow cards. I'm going to go ahead and have Glowin defend against this attack. The shadow card is no effect. So, before Glowin is killed by that damage, this forced effect has to trigger, so I've got to attach a poison to a character I control. No reason for that not to be Glowin. And then he's going to end up taking that fatal damage, so before he takes another poison card, he is of course killed, and that attached poison card just so happens to be a useless copy of Legacy of Durin. And now for your side of the table,
I will have Baragon defend.
Alright, and the shadow effect is nothing. So, again, presuming Arwen is always bolstering him, no matter what, he'd have still been fine. The Lazy Lob takes 1 point of damage, and for attacking back, I'm not going to be able to do anything, but what are you going to do?
Glorfindel.
Alright, so Glorfindel by himself is more than enough. Lazy Lob is killed, that shadow card is gone. At the end of combat, this shadow card is gone, and that is going to lead us to refresh. Alright, so Control R. Before I leave the refresh phase, I'm going to go ahead and trigger Bilbo's Magic Ring, boost my threat up by 1, give Bilbo 1 resource, and I'll spend both of those resources right away to make Dane Ironfoot conscious. So all of my dwarves once again benefit from his ability. Now I'm going to move on to my resource phase. So Thorin gets 2, Dane gets 1. I'll trigger Steward of Gondor. I'm going to go ahead and draw 2 cards. Since I'm still first player, I'll do 3 resources from Thorin Oakenshield. I'll play another copy of Glowin. I'll put 2 of those back onto Thorin. And I'll do 1, 2, 3 resources from Thorin to put Bifur into play. And I'm going to go ahead and draw 2 cards for Bifur. And then Legacy of Durin triggers twice for me to draw 2 more cards. And I've only got 7 left in my deck. I did end up drawing somebody to maybe pull one of those poison attachments off of Baragon at some point. And that is going to be it for me.
I'm not going to be playing anything.
Alright.
Oh wait, you'll let me do King Under the Mountain. That might change things.
It certainly could. Hopefully will.
Nope. Discard a Sigil, draw a Hasty Stroke. Nothing but spirit, it's unreal.
Alright, well, for quest phase, I suppose right off the bat, I'm going to do 1 resource off Dane Ironfoot. I'm going to go ahead and do Sneak Attack.
I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
And I'm going to go ahead and pick Gandalf once again. I'm going to have him do his 4 points of damage to the wicked spider engaged with me, and it is immediately going to be killed. I only need to make 3 quest progress, but I'm going to do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think I'm just going to go ahead and send 9. So I'm going to leave a defender, I'm going to leave an attacker, and I'll have Bilbo ready to hopefully travel to the spider's glade. At the beginning of your quest phase, let's go ahead and take a look at the encounter deck. And there's an old Tom Noddy left, there's a couple fat spiders, there's a wicked spider. I suppose Wicked Spider is probably the most gentle, so why don't I go ahead and put him there. I'm going to close and shuffle the encounter deck. Hopefully nothing too nasty comes out. For committing characters to the quest, I've already done mine. What are you sending?
My 7.
Alright, and I suppose Baragond is the...
Or 6, rather. I don't know where 7 came from. 6.
And I suppose Baragond is the Arwen's target? Yep. Okay.
Yep.
So let's see what we get. So let's reveal a couple encounter cards. One for me is going to be Dark Bats. Kind of a shame it wasn't yours, but that's going to mean I'll pass through. Your encounter card is going to be Hidden Path. So all in all, that certainly wasn't the worst pair of cards to come off the encounter deck. That means I'm going to end up making 7 progress, which is going to put me at 15 out of the 11 required here.
I am going to spend 1 resource for a quest action and put Beaufort into play, committed to the quest.
Okay.
Bump me up to 8.
Looks like you're up against 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 threat. So, according to Beaufort's card, if you quest successfully, you return him to your hand, but according to the rulebook, you have neither quested successfully nor unsuccessfully. So he is going to sit in play and very shortly be a 3 willpower to attack ally for the cost of 1. Hard to beat that. But at the very end of the quest phase here, Gandalf, of course, bounces back to my hand, and at this point, our staging areas combine. So once again, we've got a simultaneous effect timing situation here. So Sneak Attack is at the end of the phase. If that ally is still in play, return it to your hand. And this reads, at the end of the quest phase, you combine staging areas if necessary. So I will rule that we combine staging areas before Gandalf bounces back to my hand. And it's small, to be sure, but that means that your Horn of Gondor would, in fact, trigger.
Yep.
So, with that said, moving on to our travel phase, we've got a couple different locations sitting here in the staging area, but really only one option. So I'm going to go ahead and exhaust Bilbo Baggins in order to make the Spider's Glade our active location. But there's still 3 pretty nasty enemies sitting here engaged with us. And for engagement, looks like my threat is certainly high enough that we're going to have to deal with some of these. Why don't I go ahead and take Lazy Lob, you can take Wicked Spider, and then for engagement checks, these horrific Dark Bats are going to come down and engage with me. For shadow cards, let's deal these out as follows. And for this Lazy Lob, I'm going to go ahead and declare Dane Ironfoot as defender. Shadow card is going to be defending character gets 1 poison. That's really not that big of a deal, so I'm going to go ahead and give Dane 1 poison, and he's not going to take any damage from this attack, and that is that. The Dark Bats...
I'll have my Spearman defend.
Might as well. So Spearman defends, they're immediately going to take 1 point of damage, so they are killed. Their discarded shadow card is really not that big of a deal, so let's get rid of that shadow card right away. For Wicked Spider...
I'll have a Baragond defend.
Alright, so Baragond is defender. Who do you want to take that poison from the forced effect?
I'll put it on Beaufort.
Alright, good old Beaufort. Let's see what he gets as his shadow card. It's going to be defending character gets 1 poison.
I'm going to cancel that.
Okay, so certainly playing it safe. He takes 1 point of damage from that Spear of the Citadel. And for attacking back, I suppose I'll have Thorin swing for 5, which is going to kill my Lazy Lob. And what do you want to do?
Glorfindel will swing for me.
So Glorfindel certainly has more than enough attack strength to kill this enemy, so it is gone, and its shadow card is also gone. So at the present moment, the table is mostly clear, so I suppose we might as well go ahead and refresh. I will finally get to make you first player, and I'm going to go ahead and transfer Bilbo over to you, and let's do some resources. So I still draw 2 cards. I'm going to go ahead and do my resources as per usual, and here's one for Bilbo.
I'll trigger Kingdom of the Mountain.
Okay.
I'll take a feint and discard an Unexpected Courage.
Alright. The lesser of 2 evils, to be sure.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at your threat, if you want to trigger Bilbo's ring, you could make one of my dwarf questers conscious.
Sure.
Okay, well, I'll trigger his ring, I'll give him 1 resource, and then I'll strip those, and I'll go ahead and make Ori here conscious.
I will pay 5 for Gandalf.
I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
Great. And what do you want to use with his ability?
I'll just lower my threat.
Okay.
And that's all I'm going to do.
I think for me, I might as well go ahead and trigger my Steward of Gondor. I'll spend 1, 2, 3 resources to play a Longbeard Elder. So I'm going to go ahead and draw 1 card per Legacy of Durin. And I think that's all I'm going to do.
Okay. So for questing, I'll send 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then I will drop a copy of Elrond's Counsel to boost me up to 15,
Okay.
and drop my threat by 3. And if I wanted to add Bilbo, I could make my total 17.
I suppose there's not really any reason not to. And for me, I'm going to commit every single one of my characters to the quest. So it's going to be 1, 2, 5. I suppose I can't actually send my unconscious characters, so let me change this slightly. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15, 16, 17, because I'm going to strip 3 resources off of Thorin to do a Lure of Moria. So if you want to ready all of your dwarves, that just happened. So it looks like we both sent 17 to the quest for a grand total of 34. And hopefully that's going to be enough for us to push through. But let's see what we get. So encounter card number 1 is going to be Dark Bat. So 1 damage from Thalon, and it is immediately killed. Encounter card number 2 is going to be Old Tom Noddy, that also takes 1 point of damage from Thalon. It looks like we're up against a total of 6, which means we're going to make 28 progress. So 9 is going to be absorbed by the Spider's Glade, and that means we're going to end up making 19 out of the 3 progress required by our final quest phase here. So, I suppose at the present moment we've gotten all of the quest points we could possibly need to satisfy the victory conditions of this scenario, and we have made it through the very first of our On the Doorstep Saga scenarios. So, comparing this playthrough to other attempts I've had at Flies and Spiders, there is certainly a hell of a lot more poison on the table. I ended the game with only 3 cards left in my deck, and of course once you run out of cards in your deck, you no longer have to put poison on your characters, which is nice, but I think one of the keys to us pretty effectively tearing through this scenario was, of course, my hitting that 5 dwarf threshold so I could take advantage of abilities that don't need to be triggered. Being able to pile 5 attachments onto Thorin certainly helped, because once I was able to revitalize him, immediately in fact, I was able to start pumping allies into play, especially once I got that song. Even though I didn't end up using it very much, it certainly helps to let me recover as quickly as possible from all of my characters becoming unconscious. I think that liberal use of Bilbo's ring definitely helped us to get a lot of our characters back in action, some timely shadow cancellation effects and feints to make sure that Baragond never actually lost consciousness. and then probably just spending as little time as humanly possible during stages 3 and 4, just because we want to spend as little time as humanly possible with this Spider's Glade being in play. And come to think of it, now that I look at the Spider's Glade, of course, we should have had to look through our encounter deck and add one spider enemy to play, but it just so happens that there weren't any spider enemies left, so while that certainly maybe could have changed things a little bit, I suppose in this case it didn't actually influence anything. So there's some nasty stuff left in the encounter deck. Each character takes damage equal to the number of poison it has. So what would that have done? That would have damaged a bunch of characters, but I don't think it would have actually killed any. We have, of course, a fighting among friends, and then we've got something like choose a hero to be removed from the quest and made unconscious, but of course we sent so much willpower that hardly matters, so I think the Venom mechanic is kind of fun. Decks with reasonable defense and shadow cancellation are probably going to do pretty well, but I think the whole unconsciousness thing is pretty cool, and certainly stays true to the scene from the books.
Right, I absolutely like this quest. I did okay, even without Asphaleth, which was nice to see. I think the biggest disappointment for me, I suppose, was having a hand largely of Spirit and a couple Gandalfs. And just, I don't think I've ever had this many tactics resources left over. I'm usually strapped for them. But I was just getting Spirit left and right. But we still did okay. Luckily, there wasn't a spider left in the encounter deck. The card does not say to look at the discard pile. So we ended up okay here, and yeah, it's definitely fun. I like most of these Saga expansion quests, and I'm looking forward to our playthrough of The Lonely Mountain.
For sure. So, I think we've probably said all there is to say about flies and spiders. So, as always, thank you guys so much for checking out another entry in the LOTR LCG progression series. Just like Matthew said, up next is going to be our playthrough of our second On the Doorstep scenario, The Lonely Mountain. So, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you again soon.